the premier sports talk radio, it's Tony's Takes.
Here we go.
We're back and live in the studio for another live episode of Tony's Takes. And of course, I am not alone in the studio today. I am with my co-host, Jimmy D. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing great. We've got a lot to talk about in sports today, from people sneaking out of the bubble to Billy Donovan being fired. I think he's going to be the next Sixers coach, and we're going to go into that. We've got Phillies baseball, which has a lot of playoff ramifications, and I know Jim, he's wearing his jersey right now, his Phillies jersey. He's going to want to talk about that, and they're playing the Marlins right now, actually. Well, to get into the Phillies, we'll get talking about what they need to do and how this 7-game series is really, that is their season right there. I can't believe I'm saying it, but it is. We're also going to talk about a very interesting tweet, and I think I want to start off with this one first, that I saw the other day. It was tweeted out by John Rothstein of CBS Sports. Really interesting guy to follow if you're really into college basketball. And a lot of the viewers of Tony's Takes are fans of college basketball. I write for A10Talk.com. He talks about how the ACC wanted to bring out new rules for the NCAA tournament where almost every team in Division I sports gets to be in the NCAA tournament. I think this is, Jim, the story I want to start off with first. But before we start, I know you're listening to us right now on YouTube Live. This is Tony's Takes. We're live again for the first time in over a year and a half. Make sure to subscribe to the show and push the notification bell when you do subscribe. It really helps us get our viewership up. It lets you know as the viewer when we're going live. I know on the Twitter account we're always tweeting it out at Tony's_takes when we're going live and all that stuff. But just being a subscriber on YouTube and hitting the notification bell, that allows you to get the information you need on when we're going live. And it's just a nice friendly reminder that your favorite podcast is going on right now. So I don't want you to miss a single episode. Make sure to do that if you're listening. And also, on top of that, chat is open right now. I already see one from Kristen. Love Jimmy D. Jim, that's a shout out to you.
Love you, Chris.
The chat is wide open. If you hear a take you don't like, or you do like, or you think otherwise of what Jim and I are saying, make sure to chime in. We do read the chat and we will talk about it. So I want to go to this ESPN article. I know I said I heard this from John Rothstein, but I still wanted to go to a full written article. This one is by Jeff Borzello of ESPN. And the article is titled, ACC Coaches Proposing NCAA Tournament with All Division I Teams. I think this is a good starting point for us just to get to understand what the ACC was actually proposing in the new legislation. So it starts, ACC men's basketball coaches are proposing an expanded 2021 NCAA tournament that would include every Division I team. Several ACC coaches would prefer to avoid non-conference games in the 2021 season due to complications from the coronavirus pandemic. With sources telling ESPN that Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski is spearheading the push, Coach K is spearheading the push for an all-inclusive, all-you-can-eat NCAA tournament buffet. ACC coaches voted Wednesday to propose the expanded NCAA tournament, sources confirmed to ESPN. The vote was first reported by Stadium. Krzyzewski released a statement later Wednesday that said, in part, there is no better way to celebrate the game, quote, than involving every team in the most prestigious basketball tournament on the planet. He said the primary factor the coaches considered were the health and safety of players, the incentive that there will be games leading to the tournament, and that they will be unified as a sport with all 357 Division I teams. And that's pretty much all the gist with that one. And as you can tell, I think what these ACC teams are really, and Jim, chime in if you disagree, these teams, or the ACC teams, what they want and what they're afraid of is uneven college schedules, right? It's being reported that some conferences are not going to be able to have as many games as others. Non-conference games are going to be extremely restricted. This was already being or something that was in the works to begin with. Back in March, there was a big scare before coronavirus scare, a big scare about, smaller mid-major schools finding non-conference games. Now that's even a bigger scare for schools like St. Joseph's, the alma mater of Jimmy and I, to find games outside of the conference. And I think that's where these coaches are coming from. Sure, it's, it feels like everyone's getting a trophy. It feels like everyone is just going to get the participation ribbon. But I see the fear and where they're coming from, where you go, hey, look, how can we even judge which team should be in it or not based on record if no one's playing the amount of games that are required to make an objective decision on any of these teams? How do you, outside of the name of the conference they come from, determine what their schedule is in strength and what their player personnel is? What happens if a team gets more games under their belt? They're going to have a team that's a lot more warmed up, a team that's played a lot more together. They have now an inherent advantage because their conference let them travel a little bit more than another school. I see where this is coming from, but there's got to be a better solution than just let everyone in, because from the layman's ears, it sounds like it's a money grab. That these teams are just, hey, put everyone in, more games for us, more televised. Can't wait to see True TV put, endless hours of college basketball on the television when you got to play 357 games in the first, divide that by 2, in the first round. Jim, what do you think?
See, I do love the idea of changing up the tournament. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if I agree with going to 357 teams going into the tournament. I love the idea of the opposite. So why don't we just why don't we make it smaller? I know it's going to be less money, but this is, like they said, it's in a regular year. So there's going to be less money in it just in viewership or any other reason for COVID. So why don't we just take the conference winners and we put them in the tournament? That'll be the qualification. And then we could have a wild card kind of play-in tournament if that's what they want. But I think I like the idea of shortening the tournament and not just expanding it to everybody. I don't think it's logistically sound. And that's the one thing I always go to first is, can this even happen? Is this even possible? And I don't think that 357 teams, 178 games or whatever it is, I don't think that that's possible.
You would need at least 9 to 10 different bubble atmospheres to get teams in hotel rooms and to play each other, and maybe then it works. But then you got to go from 10 bubbles to 5 bubbles to 1 bubble. What, are you going to have a 2-week in between quarantine? Like, we just don't know where any of the rules will be for, hey, how can I get college kids to come to a hotel to play basketball? Are schools even going to let me do that? Are states going to sue the schools if they try to do that in their state? A lot of logistics go into that. I don't know if you could. They're trying to fix one thing, which is opening up a problem for another. They're trying to say, hey, the schedule is just going to be messed up, so let's find the fairest way to make sure everyone gets a chance in this crazy environment. But the thing is, by doing that, you are making it almost impossible to have any form of a tournament when you have 10 different locations. That's not possible. That is just not a reasonable solution for a problem that I don't think anyone has come close to solving from a sports perspective. I don't even think the NBA's really done that great of a job. I know some people like to fawn over it. I don't know, the court or the I don't even know what I'm trying to say, really. All I just know is I haven't been grabbed into the NBA season. I think it is because of the fans for me. I don't know if, Jim, you agree.
I think that they've tried their best to make it a suitable atmosphere for the players to play. They put the screens up with everybody streaming in, but it's not the same feel, that's for sure. When the Sixers were playing, you're rooting for the frosty freeze out. The missing of the 2 free throws in a row, and
yes,
that's like a fans thing. You have to really be at the game. You have to have fans there like messing with the people on the line, and it's just not. It's not the same at all. I don't buy into it as much as everybody else does.
And that's my thing. Maybe I'm just not buying into the fake atmosphere. That's something I'm going to have to get over. But I turn on the games. Now, look, the Celtics and Raptors game, that was a really interesting game the other night. But that's like the only one that's really like sucked me in. It was because it had a really good product on the court. Maybe I'm just complaining about the product on the court. I don't know if I'm watching the wrong games. I don't know if they're playing LeBron James too late at night. But the games I've watched, I've just not been thrilled. And I'm afraid that most sports are going to be like that. I think the only real sport that has a chance of being exciting is the NFL, which is coming up tonight.
Yeah, and at least the NFL, they're playing in stadiums.
With people.
Yeah, with people. And you look at basketball, right now it just looks like they're playing in a high school gymnasium. And that's another thing. You don't have the big expanded, stadium seating. Like, it's not even the same look at all. At least with baseball, they're putting the cardboard cutouts in the stands. And sometimes I take a look and I'm like, wow, people are in the stands, but it's it's just the cardboard cutout. So I think that they're kind of it's not perfect in the NBA, not at all.
I found this funny tweet from Mid-Major Madness. They said combine Division I, Division II, and Division III into a 1,000-team NCAA tournament. Now that I'll watch. I'd love to see St. Joe's go up against Haverford. That'd be a great little game for the Hawks to win. Finally win a game for us.
Nice little local game too.
Yeah, Joe Lenardi actually wrote an article about this NCAA tournament, and I thought it was pretty interesting. It's a longer one. I didn't really get the quotes out of it, but I like this one. So he said these are some of the things to consider. There are 346 Division I schools eligible for NCAA tournament play this coming season. That is 324 more teams than the NBA sent into the Orlando bubble. Conservatively estimating each school's travel party at 25, that's on the conservative side, we're going to repeatedly test and quarantine more than 8,000 people, ? Just so half of them can lose and go home after 40 minutes of basketball. That doesn't sound right. Another point he makes, this is Joe Lenardi, ESPN, friend of the show, he's been on Tony's Takes. The bracket itself, while amusing, would tax even the best of us. The basic math dictates that 166 teams receive opening round byes. The remaining 180 would play 90 additional games to create a symmetrical field of 256, followed by a tidy 8-round gauntlet through the final 4. All told, we're increasing the number of games with commensurate travel and risk from 67 to 345. That's a 5-fold increase, and while epidemiology is not my ology, Joe's always funny, I do know that infectious disease transmission is not arithmetic. We would be looking at way, way, way more than 5 times the amount of exposure.
Just take the first and second place winners of the conference. You have 32 Division I basketball conferences. You get 64. I don't think you really need more than that. You're going to get the best team.
I'm going to go on one more quote because it's funny. All of this so that Chicago State, which has averaged 4 wins per season over the past 5 years, can be a part of the, quote, celebration of the game. No disrespect to the Cougars, but that makes about as much sense as putting the expansion winless Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 1976 NFL playoffs. That's all you need to know. I think that's the most reasonable take. It's just a logistics nightmare. And while I think the spirit of the game was really that was a terrible quote, I think that the logistics of it and just saying, I think that it's really a consideration of how schedules are going to be uneven. Okay, I totally buy it. Spirit of the game, don't throw that out there. I mean, that's make-believe, fairy tales. That's not how the world works. Be honest with what you want. Be honest with what the real barriers to the solution are. And I can't just see ACC conference guys just tweeting out, we're considering it. We're voting on it. Give me a reason why. Give me the actual proposal. Don't just throw crazy statements out there and not think that there's going to be repercussions or backlash, or not even backlash, just scratching heads. When I saw that, I was just scratching my head, just wondering, why? I
guess the only point of the season at that point is just to get the team to try and meld together and get a better seed for the bracket. But I don't see it even being possible. So
no, not possible. Let's move on, Jim. I'm gonna blow a gasket if I don't move on to the next one. The next topic I really wanted to get into, and we're gonna stick on basketball. It is a basketball show primarily. Another Billy in Philly. Another Billy in Philly.
Could it be?
Of course, the first Billy I'm referencing is Coach Billy Lang of St. Joseph's University. But the second Billy is Coach Billy Donovan, who, according to Bleacher Report, and I think a couple other sources like Kyle Neubeck of the Philly Voice, has said Billy Donovan might be on the top of the list. So let's go to this article. Billy Donovan is no longer the Oklahoma City Thunder's head coach after the two sides agreed to part ways following the expiration of his contract. Donovan may not be out of a job long, though, as the Philadelphia 76ers are reportedly interested in his services, according to Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer. Quote, Billy Donovan's name has been floating around as a potential Sixers head coaching candidate this month, per sources. But the first order of business for Philadelphia is to get its front office situation sorted out, wrote O'Connor. Adrian Wojnarowski also reported that the Chicago Bulls are expected to have interest in Billy Donovan as well. Which one of those 2 points interested you the most, Jim? The one where they're focusing on the front office, or the one that Billy Donovan is actually being considered? Because when I read that article, the first thing that popped out to me was they got to get their front office in order. I know, first of all, the stadium thing got shot down the other week. I know that you saw that, which, for those who don't know, the 76ers tried to build a new stadium, outraged the fans like you couldn't believe it. They were protesting. Some of the Sixers podcasters had city council people on to just go off about the city even potentially thinking about giving those guys money. And now, after much of that hoopla, and the hoopla behind the fact that, all the sports radio stations were saying that this front office organization was terrible, at least they're doing one thing right, and they're looking at the GMs and the coaches and the staff and the bureaucracy of basketball that floats around this 76ers organization and saying, hey, we got to change something. Finally, they're doing that instead of hiring a flashy head coach and saying, it's all good. Nothing to see here. Just keep on walking by. This team is doing great. We're going to do great things by not changing anything but the guy who makes the plays. At least, thank you. Thank you, Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer, for pointing out that this team has at least the acknowledgement and understanding that we don't like the front office when it makes bad moves. When it makes bad moves like that.
Yeah, and neither really interests me more than the other. I think that this situation, you can kill two birds with one stone, right? The front office can make a better decision and therefore start having a better track record in the future. And they can hire the right coach. I mean, they're hand in hand. So I think this front office will make the right decision. I think this will all kind of turn things around. And once that happens, once they make the right decision on coaching, on if they have to change the GM, I don't know. Whatever, it's up to them. But once they make those decisions, then we have a good history, we have a good coach, and we have a better culture. And then we have winning seasons and deeper seasons in the playoffs.
For those piling into the YouTube live stream right now, thanks for joining us. We're talking the Sixers head coach potential hires in Billy Donovan, who was formerly, he was a Florida coach. He was also just released from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and so we're talking about that. Rumors swirling that they're going to bring him into the Philadelphia 76ers. However, they also noted that the 76ers aren't looking at a head coach until they clean up the front office, which is something that makes me very excited that this team is finally willing to point to the thing that makes them weak. I mean, really, it does make them weak. It has led to them and their demise countless times in the playoffs is bad leadership from management, and I'm glad that they're willing to admit to the media, and the media that finally is doing their job in calling them out around this. So thanks for joining us here on YouTube. If you're watching us, please make sure to subscribe and like the video. If you do subscribe to Tony's Takes, Premier Basketball Podcast, make sure to hit the notification bell once you subscribe. That way, you get notified when we go live. It makes our job a lot easier when that job is not reduced to just me tweeting out the link. When you actually get an active notification from YouTube saying, hey, your favorite podcast is going live right now, makes the world a difference. Make sure to subscribe. to us on YouTube. Really do appreciate it. And also follow us on Twitter at Tony's_takes. Once again, that's at Tony's_takes. You can see some of my takes that I just think about during the week. Tweet them out. Also tweet out when new shows may be coming up. And finally, I know no one wrote to the mailbag this week, but if you write to the mailbag, tonystakes.1851@gmail.com. That's tonystakes.1851@gmail.com. If you email the mailbag, jump into the mailbag. We'll read it out loud on the show. Jim knows I read his brother's email the other day. All emails get written. All emails get read on Tony's Takes. So if you make sure you jump into the mailbag, tonystakes.1851@gmail.com. Give us your craziest takes. I'd love to see it. Chat is open. If you chat, give us your opinions in the live chat. We will respond to them here on the show. Let's get back to the Billy Donovan talk, though, Jim. Let's just go back to some of the coaches that were being considered, though. You know, you had Ty Lue was a guy who was in the running, was in the lead until, I would say, Billy Donovan came around. You had Sam Cassell, and now Jason Kidd. Don't think Jason Kidd's really looking at us, but he's looking at other teams. Still, that's a name floating around. Who do you pair, or who do you like best with, now that we know Ben Simmons, all-team defense? All-team defense, Ben Simmons. And the coaching writer for Billy Donovan, the case I'll have for him, at least out of the four that we named, is if you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, a winning percentage over the last 4 years, 670, 570, 585, 598, 611. He's had a 55 win season, 47, 48 win season, 49 win season. Most impressive was this year with 44. He is the returning coach of the year. He tied, I think. This guy knows how to coach a team. He's had massive player changes, from Kevin Durant leaving to Paul George coming to Russell Westbrook leaving, and a rotating bench. If you think of the guys who've come in and out of that team, you know, Enes Kanter leaves, Steven Adams picks up the slack, Nerlens Noel shows up, Jeremy Grant shows up. You know, this team does have a rotating cast of characters in them, and yet Billy Donovan finds a way to win. He's never won it all. He has pushed a team to the NBA Finals. Oh, no, I'm sorry, he hasn't. But he still has pushed this team to the playoffs in the Western Conference Finals. Where am I not going right when I look at Billy Donovan? Is there something that I'm overlooking? Is there a coaching style I'm not thinking of? He's proven that he can coach the big stars, and that's what we really need in a coach, with guys like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, who aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
Right. I think where you might be overlooking is in the playoffs. You know, he only had 1 year where he went to the finals, the Western Conference Finals. And then after that, it's been kind of subpar, you know, for the next four years after that. I know this year they pushed it to Game 7 and everything, but it wasn't that successful. And I know it's a irregular year, so maybe we just throw this year out completely. I don't know. It was a good year as far as the regular season goes, but with the playoffs, you kind of wish that they would go farther. Now, that's something that we as Sixers fans already know what that feels like. We've had that. We've had a coach that took us to the playoffs 3 years in a row,
and then we
fell
lost.
short.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm a little worried. Now, I just want to give a shout out to Ed Tobin, who helped me shape my opinion on this. But I think that if we're getting Billy Donovan, we need to have CP3 come with him. Now, it wouldn't really make too much sense if we don't get CP3. They know how to work together. You know, they spent a good season this year, really developed the team. That's great. And I think that this team looks a lot better, like our Sixers team looks a lot better with CP3 running the point. That's in half-court sets only.
Yeah.
Then Joel Embiid and CP3, they can run the pick and roll, and it just looks amazing.
Well, his shooting is superior, to anything that the 76ers have, right? I don't know if you can even get Chris Paul. I don't even know what trade we could even figure out for him. Trust me, don't get me wrong. I would really like him on our team. I do agree with you on the fact that he's 36. I see people pumping the brakes. That contract does make me hesitate a little bit. But what do we have now? What can we change now? There's nothing that can make this team better other than a player like him, and I don't think there's any guard like Donovan Mitchell that we're going to be able to ever trade for. You know, those are the guys, those young guys, you got to draft them. And we whiffed, you know. That was Markelle Fultz's job.
Well, what was the Jimmy Butler deal for with Miami? Was that 4 years?
Yes.
Okay,
It was 5 because we gave him 4.
5 years. He's 33 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that pushes to 37.
Yeah, right. So if you look at it, if we sign Chris Paul, how long is the deal with OKC?
The deal with OKC for Chris Paul is 3 or 4 years, I believe.
Okay, so I mean, you're looking at 38, right? Because he's 35 now.
Yeah, but I think that Jimmy Butler, he doesn't have the kind of injury history that Chris Paul does.
That's true.
That's my only hesitation. Speaking of Jimmy Butler, I want to play this is cut 1. Jimmy Butler talking about the Miami Heat.
Man, I know this success doesn't surprise you, but what has it been like to watch the rest of the country kind of learn about this Miami Heat team and your teammates?
To tell you the truth, I don't really pay attention. I don't be on social media like that. I don't read what anybody writes on the internet because nobody believed in us. Nobody. And we like it that way. So I don't pay attention to the rest of the country. I don't pay attention to what the talk shows say. I pay attention to what we do every single day, what my teammates think, what my teammates say. That's it.
Now, I know that we are one of those talk shows that he is referencing because everyone watches Tony's Takes, even Jimmy Butler. But I love that guy. He says the right stuff all the time. Now, does he fight with teammates? Sure. But when Angry Matt called in last week, and I was re-listening to the episode from last week, he's right. This dude can ball. Jimmy Butler can ball. And I love that mentality. It was such a Philly mentality, and we let him go for no reason. And now we got to fight over Chris Paul scraps.
Yeah, and doesn't that seem so sad?
That's the saddest part in all of it. We had the guy. And yeah, sure, I was one of those guys who were okay with letting him go. And I still stand by it. You know, with the information we had back then, I'm fine with him walking. But we tied that money up into just terrible contracts. That's where the problem went. That's where we go. When I read that article and they go, we're not looking at Billy Donovan right now because we're looking at our GM. That's the first thing I think of. I think, wow, we said we were going to make a smart move by not signing Jimmy Butler, and then we just go and give Al Horford money. What? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Well, can we make a trade, I guess, throw in Tobias with Al somewhere?
No.
Do you think
the money is just so big on that?
Yeah, you think
you're really stuck with him. It's got to be an Al Horford straight up trade. I don't know who is going to take that.
You got to throw picks in something.
What picks? We traded all our picks for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, that's true.
Am I crazy, people? Look into let me know in the chat if I'm crazy when I'm thinking about this. We're really up a creek without a paddle. And I got to censor myself because it's a child show, family show here on Tony's Takes.
If we could get a 3-way trade with the Bucks and the Thunder.
Yeah, give me Giannis. He's leaving. And I want to talk about Giannis later. But man, we are in a bad situation. And because we're in a bad situation, Jim, I'm ready to change the subject. I really wish Billy Donovan is our selection. I think he's the last hope. Other than that, it's going to all be on the front office, all on the failures of the general management, all of the fact that Adam Silver messed with our team, messed with our players, took them all away. That's where the blame lies. The blame lies on us, the fans, who bought into it, who bought the tickets, who said we were going to go, and the team just said, yeah, come to the games, and then watch us destroy this team. Here, come, sit down in the nosebleeds. We'll give you a free hot dog and throw a tasty cake at you from the ceiling, and then you can watch us dismantle a promising team in 2 years and tell you to pay double for a season ticket. Am I catching the drift on what the organization wants us to do?
Seems like it.
And then we're gonna pay for the Mashulu to get blown up.
Well, I'm all in on Kidd.
That's who you want?
Out of what's left, out of who we have to pick from, it's either Kidd or Cassell.
I could do with Sam Cassell as well.
If not Billy, I'm Kidd first. But if I get Billy, it's with CP3. I need CP3 with Billy.
Okay. So that's your list? I think that's a good way to wrap it up. That's your list?
Yep.
Okay. I respect it. I think I'm going Billy Donovan, then Sam Cassell, then Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd showed me enough when he was in Milwaukee. I don't want to see that again. I really don't. He's going to destroy another promising team like Mike Budenholzer did.
What about the Kidd-Nash rivalry?
That would be very, very cool. Love that. We talked about that last week, the Steve Nash signing. It was excellent. Excellent. Jim, can we go to some Eagles talk?
Let's do it.
Are you okay with that?
I don't know. I'm nervous.
You're nervous for what I'm going to say? I'm going to start off. We're going to play two cuts. We're going to play. These are actually pretty good. This is Colin Cowherd, and then the other one's Stephen A. Smith. And I'm going to, in the end, agree with both of them. But I want you, the listener, take a listen. This first one, this is Stephen A. Smith on First Take.
Loaded as they are offensively, but still having not paid their quarterback, knowing that they got a coach in there, looking at their roster, although they're soft in the secondary, the reality is that their front seven on defense, combined with all of the offensive weapons, puts them in a position where some would label them the favorites in the NFC East, some would favor them a Super Bowl title contender, but we know it's like a black cat running around their franchise, as I say repeatedly. What can go wrong will go wrong. That's what Dallas haters like myself, meaning those Dallas Cowboy fans I'm talking about here, because I can't stand them, I despise them. They make me sick, the most disgusting, nauseating fan base in American history. I can't stand them. They make me want to throw up, and nothing pleases me more than to know Cowboy fans are miserable. So all those things being considered, they are the team with the most to prove in the NFC East.
So, Jim, that sounds like you as an Eagles fan. Okay, this sounds like me as an outsider looking at the
Dallas
Eagles.
reminds me of a house with a plumbing issue, and the owners tried to solve it by repainting the house. It looks great when you drive by. Oh, my Cowboys landscaping. Oh, my God. It's just like the talk of the neighborhood. Look at the landscaping, the lights all over the house, the paint job. Oh, my God. But when it comes to like plumbing and electrical and the kitchen and the foundation, I like Philadelphia.
Now that's me looking at the Philadelphia Eagles.
I am very pessimistic on the Eagles currently. So,
okay, give it to me. Why?
Just the injuries. I mean, are we ever going to have a year that our best players don't get hurt? My gosh, it seems like every year we just lose people one by one every week. And this time the season hasn't even started yet. We've lost, God, I think it's like 13 players that are injured currently that aren't going to be starting week one or something.
How do you feel about Jason Peters getting moved? First of all, he comes out and said, I'm a team guy. For those who don't know, Doug Peterson comes out and says, we're moving Jason Peters to left tackle and he's not taking a pay raise. And he's a real team player and I really love him. And Jason Peters says, thank you. I am moving to left tackle, and I am a great person, but I am getting paid more.
Yeah.
It just was such a bad look.
Yeah, first off, he's not even going to finish the game. He
never finishes the season. Why do we invest? And I'm sorry I say we, but why does the Eagles invest in a guy who never plays? At least Lane Johnson plays, and he's
a Hall of Famer. He deserves to be on the field. But here's the thing: he doesn't finish games. Last 3 years, he has pulled himself out of games. He doesn't have the stamina that he used to. So of course they're going to have a backup ready. Of course it's going to be Jordan Mailata, he's a rugby player that has not shown
that's a
any
revolving door. Anyone's just going to blow right through that.
So God, Carson better be looking over his left shoulder come Sunday because this is going to be rough if Jason Peters doesn't stay in the game.
I guess it was out of desperation, right? Because if it wasn't Jason Peters, it's going to be the replacement that you just named. So at least they're trying to plug up some kind of hole. But if he doesn't last, now you're out a right tackle and a left tackle.
And you have your right guard's gone. Brandon Brooks is already hurt. So the whole offensive line just looks horrible. And that's what I'm worried about the Eagles offense. I think the spread was something like 6 points. I think it's more accurately 3 points. It's going to be a close game. NFC East games are always close, no matter how bad the Washington football team is.
Like the opening last year. It was a close game last year.
Exactly. I think that game was 27-24 last year or 27-21. It was a close game. And I thought at one point that the Eagles were going to lose.
And who knows how good Alex Smith is, right? He's going to start for them, I imagine.
I think so, yeah.
He's a gamer, and he has something to prove. This guy's got a chip on his shoulder. He made a miraculous recovery from an injury.
If not, even Dwayne Haskins is going to be good this year. He's not going to be a bad quarterback.
Money line for Eagles, minus 290. For Washington, it's plus 230. Spread is for Philadelphia is minus 6.5, so they're favorites by a touchdown.
Yeah, and I believe it's a home game. So, you normally get 3 points because of the fans, but there's no fans in Philadelphia. So who knows what the spreads really are this year, if they're actually accurate or not.
Well, you know what I love about this game? This was always like the Eagles' 9th home game. The Washington Redskins can't put anyone in their stadium. Oh, sorry. I did it.
Oh, yeah, the Washington football team.
Sorry. That is just like, that's such a habit. They are always like in an empty stadium. And when this is going to feel normal for them because no one ever comes to watch their games. But for the Eagles, this is just a 9th home game and a nice opener. Everyone could come down the 95 corridor and go see the Birds play.
Right, correction. It is in Washington this week.
Yeah.
I thought it was at home.
No, yeah, it is in Washington. I knew that. We've got a couple Birds chats in the chat right here. Little tweet, little Birds. I'm a big fan. I think they're going to win. I don't think that this team's really in danger of losing their first game. Once again, I liked what Colin Cowherd said. He said it, right? Dallas is a team where they invested in the landscaping and they've invested in the paint and they got nice shutters on the door and they maybe threw a nice little summer awning on top of all the windows, which I love awnings. Jim, you would know that. I'm an interior designer practically. And they might park a Mercedes G-Wagon in the driveway. But the Eagles, they've got good foundation. They got a nice cement basement underneath that you just don't see from the street. And they've got nice pilings inside the house and the walls, they don't have wallpaper. They're fully painted and it just feels cozy inside. But they have a nice little warm fire going on at the same time. That is the Eagles football team. It is a rugged, the bushes might look overgrown and, the lawn hasn't been cut in 2 weeks, but you get inside the house and it's a whole new world.
Yeah, and this is kind of one thing I was talking about at one of my drafts this past weekend is, there was a controversy over what happened when Frank Reich left the Eagles and, the partnership between him and Peterson. And Peterson, I broke it down like this. Peterson is a personnel guy, right? And that's where you're going to talk about that foundation that you're referencing.
Yep.
The personnel, he's a culture guy. He will help the team, come together as one. Frank Reich, on the other hand, he was the plays guy. And that's where you can see the Eagles have kind of fallen short over the last few years is the plays are not what they were before. They have totally changed, and the whole design of the offense looks just way different than that Eagles Super Bowl team.
The creativity is kind of been sucked out of the room a little bit.
Yeah, it's very bland, and it's just
kind of predictable. It's like, here's a wheel route. Here he comes. Like, you're going to be able to see that. Steven Daniels in the chat going, Eagles win by 14. All we need is for our quarterback to stay healthy.
Yeah, geez. I mean, that's a bold prediction. 14.
14's a lot.
NFC East game, they're always close. I get a little nervous, especially with the first game of the season.
I definitely agree with you, Jim. I think it's just a little too early. There hasn't been that much training camp. You don't know what these guys are going to look like game one. They didn't have the open practices this year, so you haven't gotten a good look at the Birds at all.
And I'm just afraid that people are going to just walk off the field in the first 10 minutes of the game with an injury, ankle sprain.
Quote, injury.
Something.
I'm going to say that with quotes in my hands, injury.
I heard
the guy I lined up against coughing. I'm injured now. I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and then it spreads like wildfire. Everybody's injured after that.
Yeah, everyone gets scared. Speaking of Philadelphia, so before we move on, let's get the Birds prediction. We've heard from Steven, 14, which is a bold one. Bold move, Cotton. But Jim, give me your prediction, and you can take any of the bets if you think so as well.
I was looking at the over under at 43.5. That's pretty
I like
much
that one too.
It's pretty much where I'm at. I would go over, but I think it's only going to be like a half point over. I think it's going to be 24-20 Eagles.
I'll take the over as well, and then give me Washington on the spread though.
Oh, yeah. That's where I'm at too.
You agree?
Yep. Yeah, 24-20.
Book it.
Washington with the 6.5. Yeah, it's going to be close.
Book it for the fans of Tony's Takes. That's right. We're going Washington plus 6.5, and then we're going over on the 43.5 for Sunday's game, 1:00. Eagles. I'd play the fight song, but that'd be a copyright infringement. So we're just going to have to, Jim, if you want to sing it, you are more than welcome to. Let's move on, however, before you even do open your mouth to sing, to something different. Let's go into the Phillies, right? Jim, can you give us a score check on the Philadelphia Phillies right now? It's 7:40 on a Thursday night.
Yeah, it's 3-1, but the Marlins have a couple guys on base, but it's 3-1.
Phils. Okay, good. 3-1, good guys. Good guys are winning. We swept the Nats, we split the Mets, and then we split the Sox. Splitting the Sox was disappointing. Red Sox, that is, not the White Sox. I don't like to see bad teams catch us like that. And the Red Sox are the worst team in baseball right now. Maybe the Rangers are the other one. But the Red Sox are the worst team in baseball. They have no starting pitching. And you go and you split to them. In the first win, you had to get the bomb from Bomb. Like, I can't deal with that. That's not how I win games against the worst team in baseball.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was talking about last week. The bats were going to lull a little bit. And over the last week, you kind of seen the bats lull a little bit. And, of course, we had to have a late, like you said, in the first game, it was a late comeback, walk-off from Bohm. And then the second game, I just had a bad feeling all the way through. I was like, we're going to lose this game. This isn't even going to be close. It ended up being a little close, but it was very just disappointing, like you said. We can't lose to this Red Sox team, and we can't lose to bad teams from this point forward. And it's not going to get easier. Like, we have the Rays to finish off the season, and that team is hot. I mean, we're not just gonna sweep the Rays.
They're giving the Yankees problems.
It's going to be a hard fight to win this division, and that's kind of where I'm seeing the Phillies probably finish with the 5 seed going into the playoffs. But I would love to see us just kind of sneak in right at the end and take first place in the NL East, but it's going to be really tough.
So I'm a believer that we can take the Braves down. I am a believer, and I really do think that while the Braves put on a record-setting 29-9 win over the Marlins last night, I do think that when the Phillies play them head-to-head, the Phillies they inch them. The Phillies can beat the Braves a little bit better. They always find a way to just beat the teams that are a little bit better than them. And I think the Braves are susceptible to sliding. They do that sometimes. It's not like they have 32 wins and only 10 losses. They're at 25-20 or something like that. They are not this well over 500 team. They are like the Phillies in the sense that they give games up if they're not feeling good that day. They're a good team. I was a big believer in the Braves, but they still haven't pulled away fully. And I want us to be number one in the division. It's something I really look forward to. I mean, Phillies right now are the last hope for Philadelphia. The Flyers got knocked out. The Sixers got knocked out. And we just don't know where the Eagles are right now. I mean, if you're even a fan of Philadelphia, the city, you'd be rooting for the Phillies to do well because they're the only team that looks to even win close games against good teams. And they're the only team that's actually competitive in the division they are. Think the Philadelphia 76ers. They were 6th in the East. They're 6th in the East. Now the Flyers were number 1, but then in the second round of the playoffs, they can't even beat a lower seeded team in the Islanders, who turns out to are the better team than them. At least the Phillies, if we go up against the Dodgers, I know, hey, this team, while there are flaws, can get hot enough to keep us in a game against teams like that, against teams like the Braves. It's the question of, do you put teams like the Marlins away right now? This is where good teams, they build cushions for themselves on games and series like this. 7-game series. 7 games, you got to win 5 of them. There is no way that you don't win 5. And Jim, I know you put some notes down in our usual write-up, but this might be a vengeance game for the Marlins to show that they're not rolling over dead after they get walloped by the Braves, because the Marlins, they still have playoff hopes too. They're not just some team that's coming out of nowhere. They legitimately think that they have a shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah, so let's look at the setup going into tonight, right? So the Phillies were 2 games back from the Braves, but the Braves have played 4 more games than us. So really, we have to win 4 games to just tie the Braves as far as the record go. So we're going into this 7-game series against the Marlins, which we've known to be kind of historically bad in the last 10 years. But for some reason, historically against us, we're like a 500 team against them. If not, maybe a little bit underneath that, because they've kind of owned us in the last 2 years. Maybe that was Gabe Kapler. Who knows? Maybe it was the team. Whatever. I'm not going to hold that against anybody. But you're right. We need to win 5 games out of 7 at least in order to try and take the lead of the NL East. And we're going to play a lot of games over like 3 days. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard physically and mentally for these players to do it. But if we do think that they are an NL East 1 seed, then they'll do it. And kind of like what you're mentioning, if the bats are hot on this team, if everybody's swinging at the right time, we're the best hitting team in baseball. I mean, nobody can top Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins when he's hot, Gene Segura, the whole team. Didi. I mean, the whole team, you're just afraid of everybody in the lineup.
Jay Bruce, I mean, he can swing the bat on you.
As long as he's not hurt,
Yeah.
he's great. And that's another thing. We have Scott Kingery, who's still on the IL. If he came back, my God, he can hit the ball. He just has to get his mind right. Once his mind and his body is right, oh my God, he's going to hit the ball.
And we have
so
the
much.
2 starting pitchers that we need, right? You only need 2, and then Arrieta, I mean, guy's a ghost of himself, but at least you have 2 guys that, okay, 3-game series, I could put 2 guys on the mound. I know I got 2 good games in my pitching staff.
And I know everybody tries to compare every good Phillies team to the 08 team, right? Everybody does.
That 08 team wasn't as good as the other teams 2 years later.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
We only really had one good pitcher. We didn't have Doc then. That was the next year. We didn't have Cliff Lee. We didn't have the Roys. So
The Roys. Roy Oswalt, man, I loved him.
we had Brett Myers. We had Joe Blanton and Jamie Moore. We didn't really have the best pitching. So that team was all about timing. And I think if we get hot at the right time, right now during this 7-game series, that's the timing coming back, and then we can just ride it into the playoffs.
Steven Daniels says, love Jay Bruce, reminds me of Matt Stairs. And then Kristen, I want to give a shout out to Kristen, says, we have so many injuries. Talk about the Eagles. I'm hoping we will win and that Wentz can stay healthy. I think everyone agrees on that one. Hey, if you're listening to us on live stream right here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and like us and hit the notification bell. I've said this multiple times during today's live stream, but it really would mean a lot to me and Jim if you hit that notification. That way we know that you are getting notified when we go live here on YouTube. Also, you missed today's episode. Don't worry about it. You missed a couple segments here and there. This episode goes up live on Apple Podcast after every live stream. So if you just search Tony's Takes, you'll see that memorable logo, and you'll be able to listen to this episode in your own leisure time, in your car, when you're doing chores, when you're sitting in your house for the 200th day in a row. That is where you can rerun some of the great Tony's Takes episodes. And me and Jim really do appreciate all the viewers who are listening now and later. Really do appreciate it. Jim, let's move on. We've got the Phillies talk. The Phillies are, we believe in them. We got the Eagles talk. We've got the Sixers talk. We've got all the Philadelphia talk. I want to move on to a little bit more of some national stories, get back to basketball just a little bit. A couple just random topics, nothing that we're going to dive too deep into. The first one I want to talk about, however, is the Daniel House story of him sneaking out of the bubble. Now, did you hear about this, Jim?
I heard a little bit, yeah. But
this one's
dive
funny.
in.
Okay, so this is by Chris Hayes, I believe, of Yahoo Sports. Lake Buena Vista, Florida. Houston Rockets reserve Daniel House Jr. is under investigation by the league for allegedly allowing a female COVID-19 testing official into his hotel room, and his status for the remainder of the Western Conference semifinals against the Los Angeles Lakers is in question, sources told Yahoo Sports. And Daniel House was actually pushed out for today's game. Mike D'Antoni had announced that. House maintains his innocence, sources said, and a decision from the league is expected before Game 4 on Thursday. The veteran center Tyson Chandler and House were ruled out of Game 3 on Tuesday for, quote, personal reasons. Opposing teams are closely monitoring how the league handles the situation. The Rockets are the lone remaining team staying at Walt Disney World's Grand Floridian Resort, which is where the team undergoes its daily testing. House is averaging 11 points a game. Okay, I don't care about that. They haven't proved it, but the league wouldn't strike him down. They wouldn't call him out for today's game if it didn't happen, though. And he has been ruled out. So I thought that was quite an interesting story. Things in the bubble, they're not as they seem. That's for sure.
Seems like they're very promiscuous down in the bubble.
Yeah, this is not the first story. Well, what was it? The NFL guy, he was like a rookie, was trying to sneak in his girlfriend or something, and he got caught. He got cut from the team in total.
I know you had Lou Williams sneaking out, going to Magic City.
Yeah, for the food.
All for the food.
All for the food, which who knows. A couple other topics I want to talk about, Jim. The Lakers and how Westbrook, he doesn't look the same. I watched this guy play, Russell Westbrook, I used to fear him. I know. Remember the guy at the time he got flipped off at the 76ers game?
Yeah.
And that was my sophomore year, your junior year. We were watching it in Moore Hall at St. Joe's. And I remember the guy flipping off Russell Westbrook. And that was a time where I feared him as a player. Like, he was just good. That dude bounced out of the gym. You could never stop him when he came down the lane. And now I watch him. He's bricking shots. He's making Harden look bad. He's making Harden do all the work. It's kind of sad to see where he's gone, and it's really a testament to skill over anything. It's what I worry about Ben Simmons. Sometimes I don't think he's a skill player. Sometimes I think he's just all his body, forcing space. His ball handling skills haven't improved that much to where they're as good as a guard who's 6'2". He has no touch around the rim. Sounds like Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has no touch around the rim. Shots ricochet off the backboard. Same thing for Ben Simmons. It's a real testament to the fact that players who rely heavily on athletic ability, if you don't have any skill behind you, I don't know what your future is after, 28, 29.
Well, I think that a lot of this comes down to, there's a lot of talent on this Rockets team, but does the talent fit? Does it fit together? Because when I'm watching it, it doesn't seem like they're a real team together.
So you think it has less to do with Westbrook's ability physically or skill-wise, has more to do with fit around player personnel?
Yeah, well, let's look at before he went to the Rockets, right? He was incredible. I mean, he was averaging a triple-double for 2 seasons in a row. Let's look at Tobias before he came to the Sixers, right? He was on the rise. He was becoming a star-level player consistently, and then he came to the Sixers and his productivity went down. It seems like when you get surrounded, and players are always trying to recruit other talented players to their teams every year. This didn't really seem like it's a good fit. Now, AD going to the Lakers with LeBron, of course that's going to work because all they really need is those two players. But with the Rockets, they're trying to do too much, and I just don't think that it's working right now.
I could see that. There was a live tweet that says Rockets bench players upset over alleged illegal screen set by Rajon Rondo that doubled over Jeff Green, PJ Tucker. That has to do with what we're talking about right now, Rockets versus Lakers. Rajon Rondo, who would have guessed he played that well? Playoff Rondo. Playoff P, not a real thing. Playoff Paul George, not a real thing. Playoff Rajon Rondo, when he was on that Bulls team with Jimmy Butler, that was grit.
Takes me back to the Celtics, Rajon Rondo.
Oh, yeah, please. He was a very good player, though. I always had respect for him.
I will say this about Westbrook, though. Game 3, dropping 30 points, 8 rebounds and 6 assists, I believe. I thought that was a really good game for him. I know that they lost it, but I don't know. If he can continue to play like that, then the Rockets will have a chance. Then you got to kind of hope for, I don't know if Robert Covington's playing tonight, but then you got to hope for other players like that to step up.
Robert Covington playing really well for the Houston Rockets. Hope that he can continue that. Finally, I want to close out with the Giannis talk. Giannis, it's a shame to see where this has gone for his team. He's built up Milwaukee practically. The new stadium they built for the Bucks is because of him. The new downtown area that they built in Milwaukee is because of him. It was one man turning out around the entire city of Milwaukee just because he was a great basketball player. Literally turning around an entire economy because of his skill at a sport. And now they talk about and they throw it around like it's no big deal that he's just going to leave. And you'll hear it first on Tony's Takes. I don't think he leaves. I think he stays. I think it's worth staying when you are the best player in basketball. Now, I'm sorry, Kawhi Leonard's the best player in basketball right now, after the game he played the other night. But if you're Giannis and you're the best regular season player in basketball, and you're the most transformative play style since Steph Curry, you got to stay. I don't know if you figure a way to make it work. Magic Johnson had tweeted out Giannis has to stay. Mike Wilbon of ESPN has talked about how Giannis has to stay. I think the city's got a lot riding on them. This organization's got a lot riding on them. They are a prideful organization. They are a prideful history in basketball. And they really do deserve to have a guy stay and commit to just winning one. Just bring one They loved you in Cleveland. They loved LeBron in Cleveland because he brought them one championship. That's all Giannis needs to do to cement himself as a great player. And then he can go on to do his own thing. But you got to give them one. You can't just leave them hanging when you say that you have all this promise and you're getting older by the day. Sign a 2-year contract. Say, look, I like this team. I like what they're doing. Stay for 2 years. Say, this is my terms. If you can't meet them, then I'm gone. But I'm going to give you a shot to retool again. We were plus 50 on to 60 wins for 2 seasons in a row. It never formulated to a win in the playoffs. I'll give you one more shot, but if we can't do it in 2 years, then I go. That I can do with. But after 2 contracts, you got to give me a third. You got to show. I got to see it. I got to see players who care about the sport, who care about winning, who care about staying at a team. Because if they don't, my fandom as a 76ers fan, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder to know that there's no hope, that a guy who loves Milwaukee, loves the city, has done everything to build them up, and still leaves. Oh, that'd just be devastating to me, because I know that any player that ever steps foot on the court in Philadelphia is due to the same fate. Same fate.
Tony, I hate to break it to you, but life is hard.
Oh,
and bad stuff happens.
That's true.
And I think he's out the door. If you watch the end of those games that he was playing against the Heat, he did not look happy at all. And of course, you're not going to look happy when you're losing. But it looked more than that. Again, I'll refrain. It reminds me of how the Sixers look at the end of playoffs every year. He doesn't look satisfied. He doesn't look like it's going to be a good fit. And I think with the current state, the current environment of the NBA, players leave. They don't play their whole career in one area, in one team. So I think he's gone, but I don't think he's going to go to the Western Conference. I do think he's going to stay in the Eastern Conference.
He goes to Miami.
Could be Miami. After last week, with Angry Matt calling in, I think Toronto could be a good fit for him. So it could be one of those teams in my eyes. I think either Miami or Toronto.
Toronto, by the way. The Celtics are in trouble all of a sudden.
I don't know. I think the Celtics might
pull the win?
Away, yeah.
Whew. If the Raptors beat the Celtics and then Giannis goes to them, lock up the East. Lock it up. That's who's going to run the Eastern Conference for the next 3 years then, because Nick Nurse is that good of a coach.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say this. In our notes we were talking about who would be better matchup for the Heat, the Raptors or the Celtics. One of the things I wrote down was that if Toronto wins, they'll be riding high on momentum. But my guess is they're going to lose to Boston on a quadruple bounce buzzer beater.
Oh.
Just for irony's sake.
Even though just this one thing about the NBA, because now we're talking the Celtics game and we're going to wrap up the show soon. Every shot counts. That's what all I'm going to say. Every shot counts. That's that the Kawhi Leonard shot from last year proved it. And the what's his name? OG Anunoby shot. Sorry, I couldn't even pronounce the name. That mattered too. Every shot matters in the NBA. You can't just relax on any one play. That's just how that league works. And it's going to be really interesting. Love to see the Celtics go down. I'd love to see the Celtics go down. Jim, I think that's a wrap. We've talked Giannis. We've talked Celtics, Birds, Phillies, Sixers, college basketball. It's been a pretty productive Thursday evening.
Yeah, it seems like the sports scene is really up and running. Yeah,
a whole hour just flew by pretty quickly, and we don't even get advertising in the middle of our chats or shows.
Just straight facts.
It's a straight hour. I bet if me and Jim went for an hour and a half, we could fill up a 3-hour regular radio show with actual breaks and things like that. That's how much we're talking. And we don't even have callers either. I mean, I'd love to have the callers set up. We're working to get a real live line in so callers can not only chat, but call into the actual show. Other than that, thanks for listening to today's episode of Tony's Takes. Really do appreciate everyone spending the time to listen to us, whether it be for 2 minutes or 20 minutes or the whole hour. We really do appreciate you here on the show. If you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. That way you get notified when we go live. And make sure to like our videos. We already have 2 likes for this video. Really hope that other people can like our videos as well. really does go a far way for us here at Tony's Takes. Follow us on Twitter at Tony's_takes. That way you get all the recent news from us live when we're not on YouTube, just quick little blurbs that come out on Twitter, and links to all the things that are great about Tony's Takes. And finally, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we read them out loud on the show. So make sure to give us a 5-star review, leave a little message, and we will read it out loud here on the show. Other than that, thanks for listening to Tony's Takes. Jim, thanks for being on today's show. It was really good.
Thanks for having me, Tony. It was awesome.
It was a great episode. And to all the listeners, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing everyone next week right here on Tony's Takes.
The premier sports talk radio, it's Tony's Takes.
Here we go.